I want to talk about Dead Hard, and I'll give my point of view on Dead Hard. And I've noticed I'm starting to rage quit the game again. I'm doing on average like 2 or 3 times a day playing the game. I kicked the rage quit habit for like almost completely. I'd never rage quit as killer. I might rage quit the odd survivor game, and rage quit is bad. I generally don't want to rage quit, right? I want to avoid rage quitting. It's not fair on other players. It's a bad habit. It's a sin, in other words. Okay, but I've noticed I'm starting to rage quit more as killer. So, on average, I used to rage quit a lot when I started playing the game, and I had bad internet as well. And combining that with bad internet, I ended up with 72-hour bans. I stopped rage quitting. I got conditioned out of rage quitting, more or less. And my bad internet was still getting me banned though, but I got better internet, and the ban problem was fixed. So I was conditioned out of rage quitting, more or less. And I'd sometimes rage quit, like maybe a couple of times a week at most, as Survivor, because I'm less experienced as Survivor. I'm far more experienced as Killer. But I'm starting to rage quit as Killer again. I've noticed because I've rage quit today in a game. Okay, and I rage quit like twice yesterday, and the other day I rage quit like 3 times. So I'm slipping into the rage quitting habit again, which I want to kick, honestly, completely. I'm going to try and avoid rage quitting utterly. If worst comes to worst, I'll just leave the tab out the game and let the game finish. But let me tell you why I rage quit this game and why Dead Hard is the cause of me rage quitting. So I was Michael Myers, and the map I got was a game, which is quite a tricky map from a killer point of view. It's survivor-sided. I got a down, and I injured someone. I got the down on a pallet. So the person's on a pallet. And the other person was injured, and I didn't hear the grunts of pain. I assumed that they'll be long gone, they're not going to hang around and let me put more pressure on them. I misread the situation, and I got pallet stunned. I lost my hook, right? So that was a potentially good start ruined. That's totally my fault. I misread the situation. I wasn't put in a no-win situation. I should have read the survivor better. I should have made sure he left or tried to down him again if he was hanging around. That was my fault. I take responsibility for that. And that actually didn't cause me frustration per se. I was disappointed, but I wasn't like, fuck the game. It's the game's fault. It's game balance. I wasn't like that. That was my fault. So, and these people, they were in a safe zone. So I thought, if I try committing to a chase them again, even though they're injured, gens are going to get done. So I tried switching to chasing people off gens, but which maybe was a bad call. I found someone on a gen, started chasing them, and then 2 gens got done. So it was down to 3 gens. I was chasing them, and I injured them. They looped me for a little bit. I felt like, oh shit, I'm getting sucked into a chase a bit too much. I have to end this now. And then they were at a strong pallet. Then another gen got done. So it was down to 2 gens, not 4. And I thought, oh, I might as well commit here. The game's probably over. But this is if I don't get this down now, this is my last chance. But the pallet's still up. And he was greeting the pallet. Okay, and then I sort of realised the pallet was sort of unsafe, and I was sort of playing it wrong. So I was pressuring him from both sides. I realised it wasn't quite a safe pallet, and he missed through the pallet on the side I was on. So good, I got him. Boom. I went for the lunge. I hit him, but it was dead hard. He got to another safe space, easy, and it was like hardly any pallets had been broken. It's a game, so it was going to be pallet onto pallet onto pallet. So, yeah. So I rage quit. I said, fuck this. I'm not going to put myself through the frustration of this game. So I'm going to talk about my mindset and how I feel. And maybe my mindset's wrong. You could argue it's wrong, but this is how I felt. That down on the pallet, I felt 100% entitled to it. That was my down. I felt entitled to it. That was mine. I earned that down. Period. Okay? And that person abused Dead Hard. This is what I feel like. He's not abusing it from his point of view. It's a game mechanic. But from my point of view, he's abusing it for a second chance. That's what my emotions feel like. So, I'm not particularly talking about it from a game balance point of view, right? I'm talking about from a player frustration point of view. I just want to make that clear. So, I want to talk about how I try and play as killer in general. Most of my favourite killers are M1 killers. Apart from maybe Pyramid Head, I play him, and Nemesis. But I made Michael Myers. I play Legion. I play Freddy. I play Trapper. And I play Doctor. So most of the killers I played, most majority of killers I play are M1 killers. But my favourite is Myers. He's a weaker killer. He can be made stronger with add-ons, but he's an M1 killer basically. So, how I try to play, I practice so I get the feel for when I can get the lunge or attack at the very tip. And I do this so I can try and get people who greed loops too much. So what I try and do, I try to get them to drop, or if they greed, I punish them, right, with a hit. So, like sometimes, especially, I tend to avoid getting bloodlust if I start to chasing the pallet right away. But if I start to chase away from pallet, some time passes, it's at the pallet and they're looping it, I try and take advantage of bloodlust. And sometimes I even fake taking the loop in an inefficient, wide manner. Because I've noticed with good players, it encourages them to try and read that loop a little bit longer, and they discount the what they call it, the bloodlust mechanic. So you get the extra speed. So they discount that, and then boom, I just hit them just at the tip. I just get them just in time. I'm not sure if that's good play or not, but that's how I play on loops. If I try to take them straightforwardly, right, they could sometimes get away with greeding it. So, and also, in my opinion, it's better to commit to just breaking them most of the time, but sometimes you can't. So, I sometimes, from my point of view, I sometimes play a loop pretty well. I skillfully play it, then I just get them at the edge of my lunge. Just get it, and it's risky because sometimes you miss. You sometimes miscalculate, and sometimes you do ping. But I just get them at the edge of the lunge. Just get them at the edge of the lunge. And boom, dead hard. And what that does, I get engrossed. I concentrate on the loop. I'm playing, I'm sweating, and I don't mind sweating. I enjoy it, I'm trying my hardest, and boom! The dead hard snaps me out of it. It snaps me out of it, and it frustrates me. And it sometimes ruins the entire game for me. So, I personally think, from my point of view, the new Dead Hard is worse than the old Dead Hard, or it's better for Survivor than the old Dead Hard. Once the Survivors, at first, it seemed like, this has been balanced. It's not as powerful, but in my opinion, especially in the hands of a good player, the new Dead Hard is actually worse than the old Dead Hard. I could be wrong from a balance point of view. I could be wrong. I accept I could be wrong, but from my point of view, it feels like the new Dead Hard is worse. It feels like it's worse. It feels particularly deadly in the hands of a good player. So, there's really good players. They know how to loop, they know how to drag traitors out, they know how to use every single health state. And then you're just about to get them down, and boom, an extra health state with Dead Hard. And the problem with the new Dead Hard compared to the old Dead Hard, it gets them that extra distance. And that can make all the difference. The old Dead Hard, there was instances where it's absolutely useless. Right? Absolutely useless. So, like, if you the old Dead Hard in a dead zone, they use it, and so what? They don't get any distance. If you hit through it, they just get invincibility frames, so you just hit through them. They don't get an injured state. They don't get the speed boost, the distance from the injured state, and you just down them. So the new Dead Hard is actually more uses. So the old Dead Hard, you can still bait stuff to try to save people. Like you go for someone else, they get away, and they're blocking you. You hit them, they use Dead Hard to bait you, you miss, and you have a person that escapes. But I feel the new Dead Hard is absolutely a lot worse. And then sometimes you get ambush Dead Hards as well. So you don't know the survivor's there. They suddenly run in front of you because you're concentrating on someone else. You see them, you instinctively swing at them, boom, and they get a Dead Hard state. So I generally find this really frustrating. And what aggravates it is good survivors who know how to use it, and really bad maps like the game or the Garden of Joy or whatever, just really maps that spawn with really good loops for Survivor. So, and I've gotten actually a lot of abuse about this, and I've been told to get good scrub. I've been called trash, right, in certain Discord groups because I've spoken about my frustrations with the new Dead Hard, and they use a lot of theory crafting. I know people use a lot of theory crafting that doesn't apply in the real world to defend it. So, oh, just wait it out. Like, sometimes you can wait it out, right? You can wait it out, but sometimes you can't, because you wait it out, they get to the next safe spot. Like, sometimes that difference between waiting it out and not waiting it out is the difference between them escaping and you getting them. And it really messes with your groove, because your reflexes are to swing. And boom! Dead hard. It snaps. To me, it snaps me out of it. It frustrates me. It really does. It really does. And also, I've noticed in the Dead by Daylight community, and this is a bit of a digression, but I don't think this is worth an entire video in itself. But in the Dead Hard community, there's a lot of dishonesty. There's a lot of toxicity. There's a lot of people who can't debate and talk about things from a rational, polite point of view. Right? So, for example, there's people who are biased. We're all biased. I'm a killer, mate. But I try not to let that cloud my judgment at all. But I'm always going to have some bias. But I think I can counter that for the most part. And I do play Survivor like 20% of the time. I'm 80% killer, but I do play Survivor, I do play Swift. So I do understand the Survivor point of view. Alright? And I can understand when the Survivor gets frustrated, it feels like it's a no-win situation for the Survivor. Right? I can understand that. That sometimes happens. But there's a lot of people, they've got a horse in the race. They're either killer mains or Survivor mains. And it always accuse you of being the other side's main. They project onto you, then they verbally abuse you, they gaslight you, and they lie to you. So, let me give you an example. Okay, there was a debate on a YouTube channel, on a thread, and what happened was this. Okay, there was a killer main complaining about the roles, and he said that Survivor was easier than Killer to play as, and I actually disagree with that. I think Survivor is actually the harder role, the more skillful role to play. If you discount the second chance perks, Survivor takes more skill. I think it takes more skill to do loops as a Survivor than it does as Killer. I've got more experience as Killer, but I just find playing and loops as Killer is actually easier as Survivor. So, when I complain mostly about the Killer's point of view, because I've played Killer before. But I was actually defending the Survivor side in this conversation. And this person just started abusing me, verbally, and he just gaslighted me and lied as well. So what he claimed was, oh, you post on this channel all the time, complaining about overpowered killers and whining about them, you Survivor main. But I'm not a Survivor main. And I didn't post to that channel that often. I might have posted once or twice. And I certainly didn't post regularly to complain about overpowered killers. Right? That person was just gaslighting and lying to me. You just got to be insane to do that. And you could go, yeah, but why are you focusing on one insane person? Because there's too many people like that in the community who are just gaslighters, who are insane. They take up for one role and they'll just defend that role and lie to defend that role, and it's just really toxic, and it makes speaking to people unpleasant as well. So yeah, that's my video over and done with.